The golden horizon drifted through the endless darkness of space like a wounded bird. Its once bright hull now showed deep scars from the ion storm that had torn through the ship 3 days ago. Inside the massive passenger liner, Ambassador Krelty stood in the command center, his crystal-like skin reflecting the red emergency lights that bathed everything in an ominous glow. The Velthani diplomat had seen many crises in his long career, but nothing like this. 800 passengers from 12 different species were trapped aboard a ship that was slowly dying around them. The FTL drive was completely destroyed, leaving them stranded in the empty space between stars. Life support systems were failing, one by one, and the temperature inside the ship dropped a little more each hour. Dr. Yenna moved between the injured passengers in the medical bay, her webbed hands gentle as she treated burns and broken bones. The Aquarian doctor had never dealt with injuries this severe, especially not when her own people were among the wounded. Her large, dark eyes reflected the worry she tried to hide from her patients. They looked to her for hope, but she could see the truth in their vital signs and in the failing systems around them. Captain Boren paced the bridge with the measured steps of a soldier who had seen too many battles. The Centauran officer had commanded ships for 30 years, but he had never faced a situation this desperate. His forearms worked constantly at different control panels, trying to squeeze more power from dying systems, more time from failing equipment. But he knew the math as well as anyone. They had maybe 2 days before the life support gave out completely. The passenger deck was a maze of different species, all trying to stay warm and conserve oxygen. Families huddled together while the ship's crew handed out emergency rations and extra blankets. Children from various worlds cried in languages that sounded strange, but carried the same meaning of fear and confusion. The adults tried to stay calm, but everyone could feel the cold creeping in and the air getting thinner. Communications Officer Nix sat at his station, sending out distress signals to anyone who might be listening. His insect-like features clicked, with frustration as each signal went unanswered. The nearest Federation outpost was 3 months away at the ship's current speed. Even if they managed to repair the engines, they would be dead long before help could arrive. The ion storm had come from nowhere, a wall of charged particles that had torn through their shields like they were made of paper. One moment they had been on a peaceful diplomatic mission to the outer colonies. The next, they were fighting for their lives as systems exploded around them and the ship bucked like a wild animal in the storm's grip. Krelty reviewed the damage reports for the 100th time, hoping to find something they had missed. The main engines were offline. The backup generators were working at 20% capacity. The water recycling system was failing, and they would run out of drinking water in 4 days. The food supplies might last a week if they rationed carefully, but without heat and breathable air it would not matter. The ambassador had sent messages to every government and organization he could think of. The Altarian Federation knew about their situation, but their nearest ships were weeks away. Private rescue companies demanded payment in advance, and the Golden Horizon's accounts were frozen due to the emergency. Pirates and raiders controlled most of the nearby space, and they were more likely to finish off the wounded ship than help it. Dr. Yenna appeared on the bridge, her usually bright skin now pale with exhaustion. She carried a data pad with medical readings that told a grim story. Hypothermia was setting in among the passengers, especially the warm-blooded species from tropical worlds. The children and elderly were suffering the most, and she was running out of medicine to help them. Captain Boren looked at the doctor and saw his own fears reflected in her eyes. They were all thinking the same thing, but nobody wanted to say it out loud. The Golden Horizon was becoming a tomb, and everyone aboard was slowly dying. The only question was whether they would freeze first or suffocate when the air finally gave out. Then Officer Nix made a sound that nobody had ever heard from him before, a sharp click that cut through the quiet despair on the bridge like a knife. Everyone turned to look at his station, where lights were flashing in patterns they had never seen. His compound eyes were wide with something that might have been hope or terror. "Sir," Nick said, his voice shaking slightly, "I'm reading a ship on long-range sensors. Small craft, unknown design. It's moving toward us at incredible speed." Captain Boren moved to the sensor station and stared at the readings in disbelief. The approaching ship was tiny compared to the Golden Horizon, maybe the size of a shuttle. But it was moving faster than anything should be able to move without an FTL drive. The energy signature was unlike anything in their databases. Krelthy joined them at the sensors, his crystalline features reflecting the screen's glow. "Where did it come from?" he asked. Nix worked at his controls, tracing the ship's course backward through space. "The Sol system, sir. Third planet. The databases show it as a restricted world, classified as a death world, inhabited by a species called humans." The bridge went silent. Everyone in the Federation had heard stories about death worlds, planets, so dangerous that only the most savage predators could evolve there. The few species that came from such worlds were usually banned from civilized space or kept under strict control. They were too violent, too unpredictable, too dangerous to be allowed near peaceful species. Dr. Yenna's medical scanner showed her heart rate spiking. "What would humans want with us?" she whispered. Captain Boren stared at the approaching ship and made a decision that could save them all or doom them to something worse than freezing in space. He opened a general communication channel and broadcast on all frequencies, knowing that whatever was coming toward them would hear his words. "This is Captain Boren of the passenger liner Golden Horizon. We are a Federation vessel in distress. Our life support is failing and we have 800 civilians aboard, including children and elderly. We request immediate assistance from any ship in the area." The response came back almost instantly, in heavily accented Federation standard. That sounded rough and primitive compared to their refined speech patterns. But the words themselves made everyone on the bridge stop breathing. "Golden Horizon, this is Commander Morrison of the Earth vessel Defiant. We have received your distress signal and are en route to your position. Estimated arrival in 6 hours. Hang tight. We're coming for you." Krelthy felt something he had not experienced in years. Hope mixed with terror in equal measure. Help was coming, but it was coming from beings that the galaxy feared above all others. Deathworlders were approaching their dying ship, and nobody knew if they were about to be rescued or about to face something far worse than a slow death in the cold darkness of space. The countdown began. 6 hours until first contact with humanity. Commander Jake Morrison floated in the zero gravity of the Defiance bridge, watching the massive alien ship grow larger on his view screen. The Golden Horizon was beautiful even in its damaged state, with smooth curves and gleaming metal that spoke of advanced engineering. But Jake could see the scorch marks from the ion storm, and the way some sections of the hull had buckled under the assault. Chief Engineer Riley pushed off from her station and drifted over to join him. Her red hair was tied back in a practical ponytail, and her green eyes studied the alien vessel with professional interest. "That thing is huge, Commander. At least 50 times our mass, maybe more. I'm reading massive power failures throughout their systems." Pilot Torres worked at the navigation controls, her steady hands adjusting their approach vector. The young woman from Mexico had the best reflexes on the ship, able to fly the Defiant through asteroid fields that would challenge a computer. Now she was calculating how to dock with a ship designed by aliens they had never met. Dr. Lisa Park sat at the science station, reviewing everything humanity knew about the species they were about to encounter. It was not much. The Federation. Databases they had accessed showed 12 different alien races aboard the Golden Horizon, each with different environmental needs and biological requirements. She was about to become the first human doctor to treat alien patients, and she had no idea what she was doing. Navigator Ben Hayes monitored their approach while running calculations on his tablet. The quiet man from Australia could plot courses. through space that saved weeks of travel time, but he had never navigated toward a ship full of dying aliens before. His fingers moved quickly over the controls as he adjusted for the Golden Horizon's drift and rotation. Security Chief Marcus Rodriguez checked their portable life support equipment one more time. The former Marine had prepared for every kind of hostile environment Earth could offer, but an alien ship with failing systems was something new. His dark eyes were alert as he made sure each team member had backup air supplies and emergency equipment. Jake opened a communication channel to the alien ship. "Golden Horizon, this is Commander Morrison. We are preparing to dock with your vessel. Please advise us of your current atmospheric conditions and any hazards we should be aware of." Captain Boren's voice came back through the speakers, sounding tired and strained. "Commander Morrison, our internal temperature has dropped to minus 40 degrees Celsius. Atmospheric pressure is at 60% normal and falling. We have toxic gas leaks in sections 7 through 12. I must warn you, the conditions aboard our ship are lethal to most species." Jake looked at his crew and saw them all nodding. Minus 40 was cold, but they had all trained in environments much worse. The toxic gases would be a problem, but their suits could handle most chemical hazards. The reduced atmospheric pressure actually made things easier for humans who had evolved at Earth's sea level. Riley moved to the docking controls and began extending their airlock toward the Golden Horizon's emergency port. The alien ship was so much larger that it felt like a small boat approaching an ocean liner. But the Defiant was built for deep space exploration, and its systems were designed to handle anything the universe could throw at them. Torres fired the maneuvering thrusters with precise bursts, bringing them into perfect alignment with the alien ship's docking port. The two vessels came together with a soft clang that echoed through both ships. Green lights showed a good seal, and the airlocks began cycling to equalize pressure. Dr. Park was the first through the airlock, carrying her medical kit and portable scanner. She stepped into the Golden Horizon and immediately felt the bitter cold hitting her face mask. Ice crystals formed on her visor as she breathed, but her suit's heating system kept her comfortable. She could see her breath in the frigid air as she looked around the alien corridor. The hallway was filled with beings unlike anything she had ever seen. Crystalline creatures that looked like living gems huddled next to squid-like beings with multiple tentacles. Insect people clicked their mandibles in what might have been language, while four-armed humanoids tried to keep everyone organized. They all looked cold and scared and desperate for help. Commander Morrison came through the airlock behind her, followed by the rest of the team. The aliens stared at the humans in amazement, not just because they were a new species, but because they moved normally in conditions that were slowly killing everyone else on the ship. Ambassador Krelthy approached them, his crystal body reflecting the emergency lights in rainbow patterns. His voice came from somewhere inside his translucent form, sounding like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. "Commander Morrison, I am Ambassador Krelthy of the Velthani people. We are grateful for your assistance, but I must warn you, the conditions aboard this ship are deadly. Most of our people cannot survive much longer in this cold." Jake looked around at the dying ship and the suffering aliens. His team had trained for search and rescue operations in hostile environments, but this was beyond anything they had practiced for. 800 beings from 12 different species, all slowly freezing to death or suffocating as their air ran out. Dr. Park was already moving among the alien passengers, her medical scanner working overtime to analyze their biology. She found that most of them had body temperatures well below what they needed to survive. Their metabolisms were shutting down, and many were unconscious from hypothermia and oxygen deprivation. Riley moved toward the engineering sections, her portable tools already in her hands. She could see where the ion storm had overloaded the ship's power systems and fried most of the backup generators. But human engineering was different from alien engineering. Where the aliens saw impossible damage, she saw problems that could be solved with creativity and hard work. Captain Boren watched in amazement as the human engineer began working on systems that his own people had declared beyond repair. She worked with her bare hands in the freezing air, her breath creating clouds of vapor as she rewired damaged circuits and bypassed burned-out components. Hayes was studying the ship's layout on his tablet, planning routes through the damaged sections and identifying the areas where they could concentrate the remaining life support. Torres was already heading toward the engine room, where she hoped to coax more power from the dying generators. Rodriguez established a security perimeter and began organizing the alien passengers into groups based on their environmental needs. His military training helped him keep everyone calm and organized, even though he was dealing with species he had never seen before. But it was Dr. Park who shocked the aliens the most. She moved from patient to patient, treating injuries and illnesses in beings whose biology she was learning as she worked. Her scanner analyzed their blood chemistry and metabolic processes, and somehow she always seemed to know exactly what each patient needed. Ambassador Krelty watched the human doctor save a young Aquarian child who had been dying from hypothermia. She used techniques that should not have worked on an alien physiology, but somehow she made them work. It was as if she understood life itself at a level that transcended species barriers. Commander Morrison gathered the senior alien officers together and explained what his team was going to do. They could not repair the FTL drive in time to save everyone. They could not generate enough power to restore full life support to such a massive ship. But they could do something else, something that would require the aliens to trust them completely. "We're going to tow your ship to safety," Jake said simply. The aliens stared at him in disbelief. The Defiant was a tiny vessel compared to the Golden Horizon. The physics of towing such a massive ship with something so small should have been impossible. But as the human team worked through the night, the impossible began to seem merely difficult. And in the cold darkness of a failing ship, hope began to warm hearts that had been growing cold with despair. The convoy had been traveling for 2 days when the pirates found them. The Golden Horizon moved through space like a wounded giant, connected to the tiny Defiant by cables that should not have been able to bear such strain. The human ship pulled its massive cargo at a speed that defied every law of physics the galaxy understood, but it was still painfully slow compared to normal space travel. Voskar commanded the pirate fleet from the bridge of his flagship, the Sol Render. The Krex warlord stood over 3 meters tall, his scaled hide covered in ritual scars that marked his victories over the years. His yellow eyes studied the sensor readings with predatory interest as his ships closed in on what looked like easy prey. The Sol Render was a ship built for war, bristling with weapons that could crack a planet's crust. Behind it came 2 smaller vessels, the Bloodfang and the Starkiller, each one armed with enough firepower to destroy a space station. Together, the 3 ships had terrorized shipping lanes across the sector for over a decade. Vosakar's second. In command, a nervous creature called Skix scuttled up to his captain on 6 insect-like legs. "Lord Vosakar, we have confirmed that the large ship is the Golden Horizon, a Federation passenger liner. Our intelligence reports suggest it carries high-ranking diplomats and wealthy passengers. The cargo alone would be worth millions." The pirate captain's mouth split open in what might have been a grin, showing rows of razor-sharp teeth. "And what of that tiny ship pulling it? Some kind of rescue vessel?" Skix clicked his mandibles nervously. "Unknown design, Lord. Very small crew. Minimal weapons from what we can detect. Probably some civilian rescue service trying to be heroic." Vosakar laughed, a sound like grinding metal that echoed through the bridge. His crew had been hunting the Golden Horizon since they heard about its distress signal days ago. Now they had found it, helpless and defended only by what appeared to be a maintenance ship with delusions of courage. On the Golden Horizon, Ambassador Krelty received the warning from his ship's sensors with a feeling of despair. They had survived the ion storm and the near death of their ship, only to be found by the most feared pirates in the sector. He called Commander Morrison immediately. Jake listened to the ambassador's report while studying his own sensor readings. 3 large warships approaching fast, with energy signatures that marked them as heavily armed and dangerous. His crew, of 6 humans in a ship designed for exploration and rescue, facing pirates who had terrorized the galaxy for years. Dr. Park looked up from the medical station where she was still treating alien patients. "Commander, those ships are broadcasting surrender demands. They want everyone to prepare for boarding." Torres was already at the pilot controls, her hands dancing over the navigation system as she calculated vectors and speeds. "Boss, those are big ships with lots of guns. The smart play would be to run." Rodriguez checked his weapon systems, knowing that the Defiant carried defensive armament, but nothing that could match 3 full-sized warships. "Commander, we can't leave the Golden Horizon. At their current power levels, they'll be dead in hours without our tow cables." Riley was monitoring the connection between the 2 ships, making sure the tow lines could handle the stress of whatever was about to happen. "The cables will hold, Jake. But if we have to fight while towing that ship, it's going to get complicated fast." Hayes was already plotting evasive courses that would keep both ships moving toward safety while giving them the best chance of survival. "I can give us some maneuvering room, but we're not going to outrun those ships while pulling the Golden Horizon." Jake made his decision in the space of a heartbeat. He opened a communication channel to the Golden Horizon and spoke calmly to Captain Boren. "Captain, we're going to detach the tow cables and engage those pirates. Keep your people safe and be ready to reestablish connection when we're done." Captain Boren's voice crackled with static and disbelief. "Commander, those are warships. Your vessel cannot possibly match their firepower." Jake was already moving toward his command station as the Defiant separated from the Golden Horizon and began accelerating toward the approaching pirate fleet. "Captain, trust me. We know how to handle bullies." Voskar watched the tiny human ship approaching his fleet and felt something he had not experienced in years: confusion. In all his battles, Prey had always tried to run or hide when faced with overwhelming force. This small ship was charging directly at his 3 warships like a fighter attacking a battleship. The Soul Render's weapons officer, a bug-eyed creature called Zeft, looked at his instruments in bewilderment. "Lord Voskar, the human ship is accelerating toward us at combat speed. Should we open fire?" The pirate captain stared at his view screen, trying to understand what he was seeing. "Are they insane? Do they think one tiny ship can fight our entire fleet?" Torres pushed the Defiant's engines to their maximum safe output, then pushed them a little more. The ship responded like a living thing, darting through space with an agility that left the pirate ships struggling to track it. She flew through, weapons fire that should have turned them into vapor, dancing between energy beams and missile salvos with inhuman precision. Rodriguez coordinated the ship's defensive systems, analyzing the pirates' weapons and finding weaknesses in their targeting systems. Human military doctrine emphasized mobility and adaptability over brute force, and the Defiant had been designed to fight smart rather than fight big. The first pirate ship to fall was the Star Killer. Torres brought the Defiant in close, too. Close for the larger ship's heavy weapons to track effectively. Rodriguez targeted specific systems rather than trying to destroy the entire ship, taking out engines and weapons with surgical precision. Within minutes, the Star Killer was drifting helplessly, its crew abandoning ship in escape pods. Voskar watched his fleet being dismantled by a ship that should not have been able to scratch their armor. The human vessel moved like nothing he had ever seen, appearing in one place and striking before vanishing to attack from a completely different angle. His weapons officers could not track it, his tactical computers could not predict its movements, and his ships were being picked apart piece by piece. The Bloodfang tried to ram the Defiant, hoping to use its superior mass to crush the smaller ship. Torres saw it coming and did something that made the aliens watching from the Golden Horizon gasp in amazement. She flew directly toward the pirate ship, then at the last second executed a maneuver that physics said should have torn her ship apart. The Defiant rolled and twisted through space, passing through a gap that seemed impossibly small, while the Bloodfang crashed into empty space where the human ship had been. Rodriguez used the moment of confusion to target the Bloodfang's reactor core. A single, precisely aimed shot caused a cascade failure that left the second pirate ship dead in space, its crew frantically trying to prevent a complete meltdown. Now it was just the Soul Render against the Defiant, and Vossakar was beginning to understand that he was facing something beyond his experience. The human ship had not just defeated two of his vessels, it had done so without taking any significant damage. This was not luck or superior technology. This was a crew that fought with a combination of skill, courage, and tactical brilliance that he had never encountered before. The final battle lasted less than 5 minutes. Torres brought the Defiant in close to the Soul Render's hull, using the larger ship's own weapons against it by positioning herself where the pirates could not fire without hitting themselves. Rodriguez systematically took out the flagship's weapons, engines, and command systems, while Hayes calculated the precise angles needed for each shot. When the Soul Render finally went dark, its weapons offline and its engines dead, Jake opened a communication channel to the defeated pirates. What he said next shocked every alien who heard it. "Attention, pirate vessels. This is Commander Morrison of the Earthship Defiant. We have medical supplies and emergency rations available for your crews. Any injured personnel will receive immediate medical attention. Safe passage will be provided to the nearest Federation outpost for anyone who wishes it." Vossakar stared at his communications console in disbelief. The humans had defeated his entire fleet in less than 20 minutes, but instead of destroying them, they were offering help. It was the most alien concept he had ever encountered. Predators were supposed to kill their prey, not heal them. As the Defiant reattached to the Golden Horizon and resumed their journey, Ambassador Krelthy realized that everything he thought he knew about Deathworlders had been wrong. Humans were indeed the most dangerous species in the galaxy, but not for the reasons anyone had imagined. The solar storm hit them without warning on the 5th day of their journey. One moment, the convoy was moving peacefully through space, the Defiant pulling the Golden Horizon toward Federation territory. The next, alarms were screaming throughout both ships as a massive wave of radiation swept over them like an invisible tsunami. Dr. Yenna was treating patients in the Golden Horizon's medical bay when her instruments began registering radiation levels that should have been impossible. The Aquarian doctor stared at her readings in horror, knowing that exposure to this much cosmic radiation would kill most galactic species within hours. Her webbed hands shook as she tried to recalibrate her equipment, hoping the sensors were malfunctioning. On the Defiant's bridge, Jake watched the radiation storm expanding around them like a deadly flower blooming in space. The system's star was unstable, prone to massive solar flares that could sterilize entire planets. This flare was larger than anything in the astronomical records, a wall of lethal energy that stretched across millions of kilometers. Hayes was already calculating their options, his fingers flying over his navigation controls. "Commander, at our current speed, we'll be in the radiation field for at least 8 hours. The Golden Horizon's shields are too damaged to protect them from this level of exposure." Dr. Park checked her medical scanners and felt her heart sink. The radiation readings were climbing every second, and they were already at levels that would cause severe cellular damage to most alien species. The passengers on the Golden Horizon, already weakened from their ordeal, would not survive this kind of assault on their bodies. Captain Boren's voice came over the communication system, tight with controlled panic. "Commander Morrison, our shield generators are failing. We estimate 6 hours before radiation exposure becomes fatal to our passengers. Our children and elderly are already showing signs of radiation sickness." Riley moved to her engineering station and began rerouting power from every non-essential system on the Defiant. "Jake, I can boost our shields to maximum, but we don't have enough power to protect both ships. The Golden Horizon is just too big." Rodriguez was already checking the portable equipment lockers, pulling out radiation suits and emergency medical supplies. "How bad is this going to get, Doc?" Dr. Park looked at her instruments and gave him the truth. "For humans? Painful but survivable with proper medical treatment. For most of the species on that ship, this level of radiation will kill them in 6 hours, maybe less." Torres kept the ship steady as the radiation storm intensified around them. Space itself seemed to glow with deadly energy, and she could see the Golden Horizon's hull beginning to heat up as the cosmic radiation bombarded it. "Commander, their hull temperature is rising. If this keeps up, they're going to cook from the inside out." Jake made a decision that would define the rest of his life. He opened a channel to the Golden Horizon and spoke to Captain Bourne with calm certainty. "Captain, we're going to transfer our crew to your ship to help reinforce your shields from the inside. My people have natural resistance to radiation that will allow us to work in conditions that would kill your engineers." Ambassador Krelthi heard the transmission and felt something between gratitude and horror. The humans were volunteering to expose themselves to lethal radiation to save alien lives. It was the most heroic and most insane thing he had ever witnessed. Dr. Park was the first to cross between the ships, carrying medical equipment and portable shield generators. The moment she stepped into the Golden Horizon, her radiation detector began clicking rapidly, measuring exposure levels that were climbing toward the danger zone. But she ignored the warning sounds and began working to set up a medical station in the ship's most protected area. Riley came across with her engineering tools and immediately began working on the shield generators in conditions that registered as immediately lethal on every sensor. The radiation was attacking her cells at the molecular level, but human DNA repair systems were far more robust than those of most species. She could feel the damage accumulating in her body, but she kept working. Hayes used his navigation skills to plot the most efficient course through the radiation field, calculating angles and vectors that would minimize their exposure time. His hands grew increasingly unsteady as the cosmic radiation affected his nervous system, but his calculations remained precise. Rodriguez organized the alien passengers into the ship's most protected areas, creating a safe zone where they might survive the storm. His military training helped him stay focused, even as radiation sickness began to affect his coordination and judgment. Torres remained on the Defiant, piloting both ships through the storm while radiation levels climbed higher every minute. She could feel her vision blurring and her reactions slowing, but she kept the convoy moving toward safety, with determination that impressed even the aliens who were watching her work. Dr. Yenna watched the human doctor work in conditions that should have killed her instantly. Dr. Park moved among alien patients, treating radiation sickness in species she had never studied, using medical knowledge that seemed to transcend the barriers between different forms of life. Her human physiology allowed her to function in the deadly environment, but Yenna could see the cost. The human woman's cellular structure was slowly breaking down under the radiation assault. Ambassador Krelthi recorded everything, knowing that no one would believe what he was witnessing. The humans were literally sacrificing their lives to save aliens they barely knew. They worked in the radiation storm like it was merely uncomfortable weather, their bodies absorbing damage that would have instantly killed any other species. Riley managed to not only repair the Golden Horizon's shield generators, but actually improve their efficiency by 30%. She rewired systems while radiation cooked her from the inside, her engineering knowledge allowing her to find solutions that the alien designers had never considered. When she finally collapsed at her workstation, her modifications were still holding, keeping 800 alien lives safe from the storm. Hayes plotted a course that cut their exposure time from 8 hours to 6, then to 4, using gravitational fields and stellar wind patterns to accelerate their passage through the radiation zone. His navigation skills saved every life on both ships, even as the cosmic radiation slowly shut down his body's systems. Rodriguez coordinated the evacuation, of the most vulnerable passengers to the ship's core, where the human-improved shields provided the best protection. He carried alien children who were too weak to walk, his military discipline keeping him moving even as radiation sickness attacked his motor functions. Dr. Park continued treating patients until she could no longer stand, her medical scanner shaking in hands that could barely hold it. She had saved dozens of alien lives, using techniques that adapted human medicine to alien physiology through pure intuition and determination. When the convoy finally emerged from the radiation storm, every human aboard was suffering from severe radiation poisoning. Torres collapsed at her pilot station the moment they reached safe space. Jake was unconscious at his command post, his body's repair systems working overtime to heal damage that would have been fatal to any other species. Captain Boren stared at the readings from his sensors and realized what had happened. The humans had absorbed enough radiation to kill them several times over, but their death world physiology was slowly healing the damage. They had literally used their bodies as shields to protect alien lives, accepting what should have been certain: death to save others. Dr. Yenna worked frantically to treat the human crew, using medical techniques she had learned by watching Dr. Park. The human woman was unconscious but alive, her DNA repair systems fighting a battle against cosmic radiation that would have meant instant death for any Aquarian. Ambassador Krelthy sat in the Golden Horizons observation lounge, looking out at the stars and trying to understand what he had witnessed. Humans were indeed the most dangerous species in the galaxy, but not because they were monsters. They were dangerous because they were willing to face any threat, pay any price, make any sacrifice to protect others. As the human crew slowly recovered, in the Golden Horizons medical bay, every alien aboard knew they had witnessed something that would change how the galaxy viewed Deathworlders forever. These were not the savage predators they had feared, but protectors who would literally die to save others. The Golden Horizon limped into Federation space 3 weeks after its ordeal began, escorted by 2 Federation rescue ships that had finally reached them. The massive liner showed scars from its journey through the ion storm and radiation field, but every one of its 800 passengers was alive. The small human ship, Defiant, followed behind. Its crew recovered enough to pilot their vessel, but still bearing the cellular damage from their sacrifice in the radiation storm. Ambassador Krelthy stood in his private quarters, preparing the report that would shake the foundations of galactic civilization. His crystalline fingers worked over the data pad, reviewing footage and sensor readings that documented humanity's first contact with the wider galaxy. The evidence was overwhelming, but he knew many would refuse to believe it. The footage showed humans working in conditions that registered as instantly lethal to most species. Sensor data proved they had survived radiation exposure that should have killed them 20 times over. Medical scans documented their impossible recovery from cellular damage that would have meant permanent disability for any other known species. But the most shocking evidence was not physical. It was the choice they had made to risk everything. For aliens, they barely knew. Captain Boren walked the corridors of his ship, visiting passengers who were alive because 6 humans had been willing to die for them. In the children's section, young beings from a dozen species played games and laughed, completely unaware of how close they had come to never seeing their homes again. Their parents watched them with tears in their eyes, knowing that human strangers had saved their children's lives. Dr. Yenna worked in the medical bay, documenting the unprecedented medical procedures she had learned by watching Dr. Park. The human doctor had treated alien patients with techniques that should not have worked across species barriers, yet somehow her intuitive understanding of biology had transcended the differences between radically different forms of life. The medical community would be studying her methods for generations. The Federation rescue ships had arrived with medical teams and engineering specialists, expecting to find survivors clinging to life in a crippled vessel. Instead, they found a fully functional passenger liner with upgraded systems that performed better than original specifications. The human engineers had not just repaired the Golden Horizon, they had improved it in ways that Federation scientists were still trying to understand. Dr. Park sat in the human quarters aboard the Golden Horizon, reviewing her own medical scans with fascination. Her body showed signs of radiation damage that should have been fatal, but her cellular repair systems had healed most of it within days. Her colleagues on Earth would be amazed by the data, but she was more interested in the alien medical knowledge she had gained. She had treated 12 different species and learned more about xenobiology in 3 weeks than most doctors learned in a lifetime. Jake met with Federation officials in the Golden Horizon's conference room, discussing humanity's first formal contact with galactic civilization. The Federation representatives were careful and polite, but he could see the wariness in their eyes. They had read the reports about human combat capabilities and were unsure whether they were meeting with potential allies or future conquerors. Admiral Thex, the Federation's senior military commander, reviewed tactical reports of the pirate engagement with disbelief. 3 heavily armed warships had been defeated by a single human vessel in less than 20 minutes. The tactical analysis showed combat techniques that violated every known principle of space warfare. But what disturbed him most was the humans' response after victory. Instead of destroying their enemies, they had offered medical aid. The pirate. Survivors had been turned over to Federation authorities, but their testimonies only added to the confusion. Vossakar, the feared pirate leader, described humans as the most terrifying warriors he had ever faced. But when pressed for details, he could only talk about their unexpected mercy and their offer of medical assistance. Even hardened pirates seemed unable to understand human behavior. Communications Officer Nix worked with Federation linguists to analyze the human language and communication patterns. Their speech was direct and efficient, lacking the elaborate courtesies that most civilized species used. But their actions spoke louder than words. The Federation's xenopsychologists were struggling to create profiles of beings who fought like apex predators but behaved like compassionate healers. Riley spent her time with Federation engineers, sharing human technological concepts that challenged fundamental assumptions about physics and engineering. Human technology was not more advanced than Federation science, but it was different. Where alien engineers sought perfection and elegance, humans built things that worked under impossible conditions. Their designs were robust, adaptable, and capable of functioning far beyond their intended parameters. Ambassador Krelthy received a priority message from the Galactic Council requesting his immediate presence to brief the assembled representatives of 47 member species. His report would be the foundation for humanity's first evaluation by galactic civilization, and the decisions made in that chamber would determine whether humans were welcomed as allies or feared as threats. Torres had recovered enough to pilot the Defiant back to Earth, carrying Federation diplomats who wanted to see humanity's home world for themselves. The journey would take several weeks, giving both sides time to learn about each other. The human pilot looked forward to showing aliens the blue marble that had forged humanity into the beings they had become. Hayes worked with Federation navigators to share human stellar cartography data, revealing that humanity had mapped star systems that the Federation considered unexplored. Human deep space missions had pushed further into the galaxy than anyone had realized, but they had done so quietly, without announcing their presence or claiming territory. Rodriguez coordinated with Federation security forces to share tactical data about the pirate fleets that threatened civilian shipping. Human military doctrine emphasized protection of innocents and the use of minimum necessary force, concepts that seemed alien to many Federation species who were used to thinking in terms of conquest or submission. The formal first contact ceremony took place aboard a Federation diplomatic vessel that met them at the border of human space. Jake stood before representatives of dozens of alien species, knowing that his words would determine humanity's place in the galaxy. He spoke simply and directly, as humans always did. We are explorers, not conquerors. We are protectors, not predators. We come from a world that tried to kill us every day, but instead of making us monsters, it taught us to value life in all its forms. We offer our friendship to any species that shares these values, and our protection to any who need it. Ambassador Krelty stood before the Galactic Council 3 days later, presenting his complete report to the assembled representatives of galactic civilization. The chamber fell silent as he played recordings of humans working in lethal radiation, fighting impossible odds, and sacrificing themselves for alien lives. Honorable representatives, he concluded, we have discovered that there are indeed monsters in the universe, but we have also discovered that there are Death Worlders who hunt those monsters. The question before us is simple. Do we welcome these guardians as our protectors, or do we fear them as potential threats? The vote was unanimous. Humanity was offered full membership in the Federation and a permanent seat on the Galactic Council. But more than that, they were asked to serve as the galaxy's defenders, using their unique nature as Death Worlders to protect those who could not protect themselves. Jake accepted on behalf of humanity, but with one condition: humans would serve, not as rulers but as guardians, taking the most dangerous assignments and facing the greatest threats so that other species could live in peace. They would be the shield that stood between civilization and the darkness beyond the stars. The ceremony ended with Admiral Thex formally requesting that human ships patrol the most dangerous regions of space, hunting pirates and protecting civilian shipping. It was a responsibility that would take human crews far from Earth into dangers that would test even Death Worlder endurance. As the diplomatic meetings concluded and the Golden Horizon finally reached its destination, its passengers scattered across the galaxy carrying stories that would become legend. They spoke of humans who pulled impossible rescues, fought unwinnable battles, and chose to heal rather than harm. Dr. Yenna established the first interspecies medical exchange program, bringing human doctors to teach alien physicians the techniques she had learned from Dr. Park. The program would save millions of lives across the galaxy as human medical knowledge spread to species who had never imagined such healing was possible. Captain Boren requested assignment to the new Joint Defense Force, working alongside human crews to protect civilian shipping from pirates and raiders. His experience fighting beside humans had taught him new ways to think about courage and sacrifice. Ambassador Krelty became humanity's strongest advocate in the Galactic Council, using his influence to ensure that human crews received the support and resources they needed for their dangerous missions. His final report became required reading for every diplomat in Federation service. Years later, when children across the galaxy asked about the humans who served as their protectors, they would hear the story of the Golden Horizon. They would learn about the tiny ship that pulled a giant liner to safety, about humans who fought pirates and showed mercy to their enemies, about Death Worlders who chose to sacrifice themselves rather than let others suffer. The story always ended the same way. There are monsters in the dark between the stars, but there are also humans. And as long as humans stand watch, the monsters will never reach us. In the depths of space, human ships continued their patrols, their crews ready to answer any distress call that echoed across the void. They carried the hopes and gratitude of 1,000 species, and they bore that responsibility with the quiet dignity that had marked them from the beginning. The galaxy had found its guardians at last, and the universe was safer for it.